Amidst the vanity of the fashion capital of Shanghai are the empty shells of garments suspended in the grand hall, a silent confession of Menglong's cruel fate. When the flesh vanishes but the ghosts of fabric remain as a challenge, are we admiring high art, or are we witnessing the embodiment of a ruthless system that has drained a human being of their identity? The death of Menglong is not merely an ending, but an informational abyss filled with haunting, unresolved enigmas. If you also feel a chill emanating from those uninhabited spaces, please take a second to like and subscribe. Join me as we pierce through the mist of power to find the lingering light of humanity for those forgotten souls. In the heart of a luxury shopping center in Shanghai, where lights reflect off polished glass walls and the sound of footsteps mingles with the rhythm of modern life, an unexpected image appeared, causing many to stop in their tracks. It was a massive advertisement for an A-list actress, hanging high in the main lobby, surrounded by dozens of long overcoats floating in mid-air. There were no bodies inside. There were no faces. Only layers of empty fabric, suspended at various heights, creating a scene that was simultaneously surreal and chilling. To some, this was purely an artistic experiment. To others, the primary sensation was an indefinable unease. Many spectators present described the atmosphere as reminiscent of dark period films, where humans exist through shadows rather than life. In an industry long accustomed to glamour and tight image control, this reaction was not accidental. The timing of the exhibition's appearance made the public even more sensitive. The death of Menglong remains an unhealed wound in the minds of fans. Unanswered questions, fragmented details yet to be connected, and a lingering sense of loss have made public opinion particularly vigilant toward any strange symbolism. In the entertainment industry, timing is always pivotal. When a shocking event has not yet settled, any subsequent image or message is viewed through the lens of unresolved emotion. The exhibition of empty coats was not the direct cause of the fear, but a catalyst. It triggered the collective memory of a loss that had not been adequately explained, causing the public to subconsciously connect unrelated points into a more continuous narrative in their minds. From the perspective of crowd psychology, this reaction is not rare. When humans face events beyond their control, they tend to seek order in chaos. Vague symbols, especially those bearing human shapes but lacking life, are often interpreted as warning signals. In a context where trust in the entertainment industry has been damaged, such interpretations become even more extreme. Notably, most of the reaction was not aimed directly at the art or the designer. Instead, it focused on the system standing behind it. Many began to question the actual lives of artists in an environment that seems glamorous, but is filled with constraints. Long-term contracts, strict confidentiality clauses, and an almost absolute dependence on management companies make the boundary between career and personal life incredibly fragile. In the case of Menglong, unusual signs prior to his passing have been recalled many times. Performances where he appeared in an unstable mental state. Live streams where his eyes seemed to carry something he could not speak aloud. Vague apologies, directed at no clear recipient, yet repeated incessantly. At the time, these details might have been dismissed as momentary emotions. However, placed in this context of the aftermath, they are now perceived as belated cries for help. Suspicion does not arise from a single piece of evidence, but from the feeling that there are too many information gaps. The public does not assert exactly what happened, but they sense that the picture presented to them is incomplete. It is precisely the distance between official information and personal perception that has eroded trust. In the entertainment industry, an artist's image is often constructed as a finished product. Every negative emotion is covered with a smile. Every personal difficulty is seen as secondary to the collective interest. When an artist is no longer able to meet those expectations, the system seeks to adjust, replace, or silence the issue. This does not necessarily stem from malice, but from the operational logic of an industry that prioritizes profit and stability above all else. It is this very logic that makes the public begin to wonder if humans are still the center of the entertainment world. When everything can be staged, from images to emotions, where is the final boundary that cannot be crossed? This question does not aim to accuse any specific individual, but reflects a common concern about a system too large to be held accountable for every individual fate within it. At a deeper level, the unease also comes from the audience's realization of their own role. An artist's fame cannot exist without the constant attention of the public. Every view, every share contributes to maintaining the pressure to appear, to be perfect, and to remain silent when necessary. In the moment of facing tragedy, many have begun to question the boundary between admiration and the consumption of another person's emotions. Therefore, the controversial exhibition was not just an isolated event. It became a mirror reflecting the mental state of society at that time. A society that is losing faith in prepackaged stories. A public that no longer easily accepts brief explanations for complex tragedies. And an entertainment industry standing before the demand to look back at how it treats the people who create its radiance. The root of the story does not lie in what is true or false, but in the feeling that there is something left unsaid. When that feeling exists long enough, it will find its own way to manifest, through suspicion, through deduction, and through relentless questioning. And it is from here that the media wave began to form, carrying even more intense controversies ahead. When the initial suspicions had not yet subsided, social media became the place where all emotions were amplified. In a short time, snippets of images, comments, and speculations related to Menglong appeared densely across multiple platforms. Without a single information center, the story was pieced together from hundreds of small fragments, each carrying a different interpretation. One current of opinion suggested that the public was overreacting. From this perspective, the exhibition was merely a creative product with poorly considered timing, and any connection to the personal tragedy was mere speculation. Supporters argued that art always exists on a controversial boundary, and attaching negative meaning to it could harm creative freedom. Conversely, a large segment of the audience saw in it signs of systemic insensitivity. For them, the issue did not lie in artistic intent, but in the fact that the entertainment industry has become accustomed to using human images as mere props. In a context of eroded trust, any lack of sensitivity is easily viewed as evidence that humans are no longer the top priority. The focus of the media flood gradually shifted to private details in Menglong's life. Old images were unearthed. Live streams were analyzed frame by frame. Every expression and every sentence was placed under the microscope of public opinion. In this flow, the story of the two dogs he once raised became an unexpected symbol. Attention focused particularly on a dog named Ham. Some netizens argued that Ham's image in the final years no longer matched previous photographs. They pointed out small differences in appearance, gaze, and interaction with the owner. In a cyberspace where emotion leads reason, these details were quickly connected into a larger hypothesis about loss and replacement. No concrete evidence was provided. However, what made the story spread was not the reliability of the information, but its symbolic value. For many, Ham was not just a pet. He represented a rare emotional bond in the high-pressure life of an artist. When the hypothesis of that loss appeared, it touched the deep-seated fear that even the most private matters could be violated. The live streams of Menglong during this period were viewed from a completely different angle. Brief apologies, bloodshot eyes, and moments where he seemed to lose emotional control were no longer seen as personal weakness. Instead, they were interpreted as indirect signals of a pressure he could not speak of directly. This interpretation, though unconfirmed, reinforced the sense of a silent conflict between the individual and the system. The media flood did not only affect the image of those directly involved, but also impacted general trust in the entertainment industry. Management companies were placed in a position where they had to explain more, while being bound by internal regulations. Silence, which was once seen as a familiar way to handle crises, was this time perceived as a sign of evasion. In this context, the audience began to recognize a divide within their own community. One side called for sobriety and respect for the truth. The other demanded transparency and fairness for those who no longer had the chance to speak. These two parallel currents of opinion coexisted, not excluding one another, but both reflecting a reality. Trust was no longer a given. Notably, amidst the wave of controversy, the role of the viewer was also questioned. Collective attention can be both a lifeblood and a massive pressure. When a story is shared incessantly, the line between seeking the truth and consuming the tragedy of others becomes blurred. Many began to wonder if their participation was contributing to the aggravation of wounds that already existed. The media flood eventually transcended the scope of an individual. It raised broader questions about the responsibility of the entertainment industry, the media, and the public themselves. When every piece of information can be edited and disseminated in seconds, the ability to control the narrative is almost non-existent. And in that chaos, power structures that are rarely mentioned began to emerge in the thoughts of viewers, signaling a more intense phase waiting ahead. When the story no longer revolved around a single artist or event, public attention gradually shifted toward the operational structure behind the lights. The prolonged controversies exposed a common sentiment. The problem did not lie with individuals, but with a system that allows similar tragedies to repeat without leaving clear answers. At that time, signs of fracture within the entertainment industry began to be viewed as parts of the same picture. Financial reports regarding the decline of major media corporations appeared almost simultaneously with the wave of suspicion. Debt figures, forced share auctions, and emergency shareholder meetings became daily news. For many, this was not just a story of business failure, but evidence that a growth model based on centralized power and absolute control was entering a period of recession. The financial collapse brought along a crisis of trust. In the past, entertainment corporations were viewed as solid fortresses that artists could rely on to build long-term careers. However, as those fortresses began to shake, the public realized that the stability once promised might only be temporary. Artists, in many cases, became the most vulnerable variables when the system needed to save itself. From here, the story expanded into a deeper layer of power, where the boundaries between entertainment, politics, and economic interests become difficult to define. Conferences, policies, and cooperation agreements were mentioned not as incriminating evidence, but as context showing how large systems operate. When an industry grows beyond the cultural sphere, it inevitably collides with other fields, bringing about unpredictable consequences. For the public, connecting these pieces did not stem from a desire to confirm a specific conspiracy. Instead, it was an effort to find meaning in a series of events that made them feel helpless. When official answers were unconvincing, the collective imagination filled the void. This is the natural mechanism of society when facing power structures too large to observe directly. The peak of this awareness lay in people beginning to see the entertainment industry as part of a broader ecosystem where profit, image, and information control can overwhelm the human element. Personal stories, no matter how heartbreaking, risk being dissolved into the flow of interests if there is no clear protection mechanism. Truth, in this case, is no longer a specific destination, but a process that is continuously delayed. In this context, the image of celebrities changed significantly in public perception. They were no longer just symbols of success and radiance, but individuals who had to balance immense expectations against finite endurance. When the system operates smoothly, that balance can be maintained. But when the system encounters a crisis, the pressure shifts toward the weaker side. This led to an unavoidable question: who holds the responsibility when tragedy occurs? This question has no simple answer, as it involves many overlapping layers of responsibility. Management companies have an obligation to protect artists, but also face market pressure. The media has a role in reporting, but is caught in a whirlpool of competition. The public is both a supporter and a constant source of pressure. Every link contributes to the final outcome, even if no one directly desired it. The exposure of the system, therefore, was not a sensationalist unveiling, but a slow process of realization. It forced society to face the reality that no power structure exists without creating harm. The issue lies in whether that harm is recognized and handled in a timely manner. When silence becomes the default reflex, trust will continue to be eroded. At this climactic moment, the story was no longer directed toward finding a culprit or delivering a verdict. Instead, it opened a space for reflection on the limits of an industry once seen as a place where dreams are made. When that dream is built on pressure and silence, the price to be paid may be greater than what appears on the surface. When the final clamor recedes into the darkness, what truly remains is not a complete set of records, but a vast and terrifying void. Is that brilliant stage light truly bright enough to obscure the inner storms behind the velvet curtain? Or is it merely incinerating fragile souls in the name of success and expectation? The story of Menglong does not close with a final period, but opens a great question mark about human existence within a giant entertainment machine. When power and profit are weighed, is the value of an artist viewed as a kind of cost to exchange for the smooth operation of a collective dream? Is it time for us to adopt a more sober perspective, where empathy must go hand in hand with responsibility, so as not to inadvertently turn the pain of others into a fast-consuming commodity on social media? The future of the entertainment industry may still continue with new faces and new radiance, but the fractures that Menglong left behind will forever be a sharp reminder that when the lights go out, the most precious thing is not illustrious fame, but how we have treated one another as real human beings. Thank you for staying with me until the final lines of this poignant story. If your heart is also vibrating before the silent pain of Menglong, please leave a like and press subscribe to the channel so that we never lose each other on the journey to find core human values. In your opinion, does a more transparent and tolerant entertainment system truly exist, or is it merely a distant illusion? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. It is your sobriety that will be the small candle preventing similar tragedies from repeating in the future.